If you're struggling with creating a carbon reduction plan for your business, then this video is for you. Today, I'm going to outline how we at the Carbon Stamp help businesses create a carbon reduction plan in order for them to meet compliance, boost their competitive advantage, as well as implement cost reduction and energy savings. Hi, my name's Fraser. I'm the CEO and founder of the Carbon Stamp, where we help businesses calculate and reduce their carbon emissions. Here's a quick example of a company we recently helped create a carbon reduction plan for in order for them to win an NHS tender. They required a PPN 0621 carbon reduction plan. Here it is outlining their scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, as well as initiatives in place that they are currently exploring. You can find all of the details on their website at medicomhealthcare.com. So before we dive into how you create a carbon reduction plan, the first step you really need to do is understand why you're doing this, because that helps create the strategies and also the ethos and culture around what you're doing as a business. So I've got 3 reasons here of why a company may need a carbon reduction plan. There could be other ones, but these are the ones that we typically see across all of our clients. So number 1 is typically always regulatory compliance. This is the key reason for a lot of companies, okay? So like I just mentioned, NHS tenders, you may have larger firms asking for supply chain data. That's kind of compliance that we see. Number 2 is competitive advantage, okay? So this is helping to boost your green credentials and also just boost a greener brand image. Finally, we've got cost reductions and efficiency savings. It's kind of a byproduct of the carbon reduction plan. You're able to identify those emission hotspots and then implement strategies to reduce it. Simple as that. So again, what I'm talking about here is that you need a foundation. You need a baseline. You need to learn to walk before you can run. In this situation, you can't reduce what you don't know. So step 1 is to calculate your current carbon footprint and find out what your current carbon emissions are. And how we do that is adhering to the GHG protocol corporate standard, calculating all scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions. I've got another video highlighting this on my channel if you want to see. So what I mean by this is that firstly, you need to establish a baseline across all your operational boundaries, and from there we can identify the emission hotspots in order to implement and create that carbon reduction plan. So step 2 is, after completing the carbon report, we analyse those hotspots in those biggest areas. So the highest emission sources by categories, and from there we focus on areas where we've got the most influence for change. For example, for inbound deliveries, you typically don't have much influence over the distributor. However, for outbound deliveries, typically you are the company purchasing those the contracts with the distributor. So it's really important there. You've got the pick and the choose of what you want to do. Additionally, business travel, you'll have the pick and choose of the carbon hierarchy, what you're approving in terms of expenses, and also owned vehicles. If you've got a whole sales fleet, you might be buying 20 cars for your sales fleet. And if you're purchasing ones electric versus diesel, it's those sort of considerations you'll be having right at the top. So from there, you can get an emissions breakdown per scope and category, which will provide a deeper analysis in the activity data. So we've analysed the biggest impact areas. Step 3 is actually writing down realistic reduction recommendations. Okay, so for each activity data source, we want to create specific recommendations which are tailored to your functions, your business strategy. You don't want to be picking ideas from other companies that might not be relevant to you. Every business is different and the operations are different. So I've just got some quick examples here of what you could use in your own business. If your energy consumption in gas is extremely high, the first thing you want to be doing is electrifying that and putting it on a renewable energy tariff. Another example is a vehicle fleet. You want to electrify all of that, turning diesel engines into battery electric vehicles. Science-based targets also really important. So there's 2 options here. An absolute reduction target, for example, if you want to see a 50% reduction by 2035, that's taking 100 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent down to 50 in a 10-year period. And secondly, I think it's really important, is intensity metrics. So a lot of businesses are aiming for growth, right? But what you want to see is emissions decrease with that per £1 million in revenue. For example, if your emissions stay the same over 2 years or even increase slightly, but your revenue is growing by 50%, actually you've seen a reduction in your emissions intensity there. Time frame also really important. You need to be realistic. You don't want to be saying we can achieve 100% reduction in the next 5 years. It's just not possible in terms of where we are in the current world climate. So it's be really important, be really clear, and be really realistic along your supply chain. Step 4 is then you monitor this annually. So what you need to do is complete a carbon impact report every year to see where things may have gone up and things may have gone down, where the business has grown, where the business decreased. So one company we're working with at the moment is seeing that their business travel has increased exponentially. And that's because they're getting a way more sales team on board. So that's a really key metric for us. It's something to carry on tracking in the next 3 to 5 years. And we've seen decreases in other areas. So that's where the focus shifts, okay? And that is kind of a cultural shift as well, right? As mentioned, these are the key metrics that need to be reviewed every year. So we've got actual emissions versus that baseline for the first year you've ever done it, the emissions intensity ratio I've just mentioned, and also cost savings potentially achieved. You want to be revisiting this plan annually and updating your priority list. So, common mistakes to avoid. We've got setting unrealistic timelines. They need to be realistic. You do not want to be shooting for the stars. We want to land on the moon, okay? Focusing only on the small wins. They're only going to take 1 or 2% of the actual total carbon footprint. So you want to be ensuring you're focusing on the larger chunks as well. For example, deliveries and purchase goods and services. You want to avoid not engaging your team and supply chain. They're integral to reducing your scope 3 emissions. And finally, you want to avoid treating it as one and done. This is going to be annual every year for the next 10 to 15 years until we see a net zero by 2040, 2045. If you've got any questions of what I've talked about today, please don't hesitate to give me a shout. Thank you.